Hi, Shavua Tov. My name is Amit Gvaryahu. My wife Yedida Cohen and I have been teaching here at Midreschet since Thursday. We will be at Yom Iyun on Sunday. And since it's Motzei Shabbat and Eliyahu Hanavi has just visited all of us, I thought it would be fun to learn some sources together about Eliyahu Hanavi in our world. So, just the big plot line, sort of mapped out in part one, just to recap. I'm going to sort of tell you the narrative of Eliyahu Hanavi very quickly. He appears out of nowhere in 1 Kings 17. He has a showdown with the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. That's when everyone yells out, Adonai hu Elohim, Adonai hu Elohim. Yes. Then he has a showdown with King Achav over a vineyard, a certain vineyard belonging to a man named Navot. Achav took the vineyard. Eliyahu rebukes Achav for taking the vineyard. And in fact, Achav is killed. Eliyahu performs various miracles. He brings a child to life. Back to life. He makes a lot of food sort of materialize out of nowhere. He sustains people during a famine. And then just as mysteriously as he appears in the narrative of Kings, he is taken away. And this is 2 Kings chapter 2. He's taken away and he doesn't die. And that's the weird sort of feature of Elijah the prophet. He never dies. He is whisked away into the heavens on a chariot of fire, but he doesn't die. Elisha, his student, right, is reported to never have seen him again. And that's it. That's the last we hear about Eliyahu for most of Tanakh. Then he shows up in two more interesting places. In 2 Chronicles, I'm just going to read this out for you, because we're going to meet it again in print. In 2 Chronicles, he sends a letter. Divrei Yamin Bet, Perek Kaf Aleph, if you want to follow on your smartphones. That's a thing, right? Is it here? No? It's not here. I wrote it wrong. In Divrei Yamin Bet, there is a letter attributed to Eliyahu Hanavi, and the first source Aleph, Seder Olam Rabbah, part 2, you already have it on your pages. Seder Olam Rabbah says that when this letter was sent, Eliyahu had been put away, nignaz, for 7 years. So, someone trying, Seder Olam is an interesting work. It's a Tanaitic work, meaning it's from the same people who brought you the Mishnah and the Tosefta and the Passover Haggadah. It's a work of chronicling, sort of listing all the events that happened from the beginning of time, from Bereshit, all the way down to the period of the Second Temple and the destruction. This is not a genre that the rabbis usually write in. This is the only such work in sort of in this bookshelf that you'll find until the Middle Ages. And what Seder Olam tries to do is to match up all the events in all the different parts of Tanakh. It doesn't always work. And so he has to be creative. Here, in Seder Olam Rabbah Yud Zayin, he writes about Achazyahu. Achazyahu, I'm reading in the English, but the Hebrew is there for you to see. If that's all right, yes? Everyone's happy with that? Achazyahu ruled for 2 years. And in his second year, Eliyahu was put away and will not be seen until the Messiah will come. How do we know that Elijah will be seen until the Messiah will come? We'll see that in 1 minute. And in the days of the Messiah, he will be seen and then put away again. And then he will not be seen until the days of Gog and Magog. And now he writes all the generations. I'm skipping a little. And a letter came to him from Eliyahu and Avi saying, that's in 2 Chronicles, but I got the numbers wrong. Eliyahu had been put away for 7 years at that time. Right? So if Eliyahu was taken away in the 2nd year of Achaz, and then the letter shows up from Eliyahu and Avi in Achaz's hands later, how did the letter get to Achaz?
Elisha.
No, but the letter comes from Eliyahu.
Yeah.
So we need some... Pardon?
Israelische Post. He said email.
Email. So it's some sort of email, right? It has to be some sort of... Either the numbers are wrong, the chronicling is off, the letter came to Achazyahu when Eliyahu was still alive, Eliyahu had not been taken away in the 2nd year, he was taken away in the 9th year. You have to match up the chronicles slightly differently. That's one solution. The other solution is...
Israeli Post works then as today.
That's good, that could work. Assuming Israeli Post did not work as badly in the 8th century BCE, the letter comes, Eliyahu is not dead, and so he is perfectly capable of sitting down and writing a letter and getting it to our world in the appropriate channels. How do we know Eliyahu will come at the end of days? Because in the book of Malachi, which is the last book of prophecy, and it sounds like the last book of prophecy. Right? In the book of the last chapter of Malachi, the last verses, Zichru Torat Moshe Avdi, it's not on the source sheet. Remember the Torah of Moses, my servant. Do everything the Torah says, and I'm going to send Eliyahu Hanavi before the coming of Yom Hashem HaGadol V'Anuha. Right? It's a song. So Eliyahu is going to work all sorts of machinations in our world, and his arrival, re-arrival, is going to signify the beginning of a messianic age. He will come before the Messiah, do all sorts of fixing that needs to be done, and then the Messiah will come. Why specifically Eliyahu? Because he's not dead. Right? So he is the one who is singled out by the last prophet Malachi. Malachi says, I'm not the last prophet. There's another guy. He's somewhere. You can't see him, but he's not dead. And he will come and fix things. He will be the actual last prophet. And what we're going to see now is different ways in which this idea that Eliyahu is not dead and his job is to fix things in the world before the ultimate redemption. Right? He's not a contractor who builds the world up from scratch. He is a small shiputznik. Right? He does little repairs in the home while he is waiting for his big job, which is to bring the Messiah. So for instance, what is Eliyahu supposed to do before the Messiah comes? What little fixings are supposed to happen? So the Mishnah in Masechet Eduyot, that source bet on your sheets, says, Rabbi Yoshua said, I have a tradition in the name of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, who heard from his teacher and his teacher from his teacher, Halakha Moshe Sinai, a law to Moses from Sinai, that Eliyahu doesn't come to impurify or purify, or push away or bring near, but only to push away those who were brought close by force and bring close those who were pushed away by force. What are we talking about? Mishnah Eduyot, in this chapter, has discussions about yichus, lineage, who is permitted to marry whom, and there are families that are pure and families that are impure. Yedida is the expert on this. You can talk to her about all of these things. There are families that are pure or impure, families that were brought in that shouldn't have been because one of their great-grandmothers was a slave or one of their forefathers was a Gentile, or there was a funny story in the village between a brother and a sister and all their children came out with no right eye. Things like that. These are local traditions, and there is a great deal of doubt about them. And then Rabbi Yehoshua in the Mishnah says, Eliyahu's job before the coming of the Messiah is not to sort out all those problems. So before we keep going, when someone says, X, the purpose of X is not Y, what can we learn from that?
Someone thinks that it is his job.
Someone thinks that it is his job. Someone thinks that Eliyahu's job before the coming of the Messiah is to pull out all the Jews, rank them according to family, purity, put them in a phone book, and at some point draw a line and say, you guys above the line, you're in, and you guys below the line, well, it's been nice to know you. Have a nice day. Why is that Eliyahu's job? Why would that be Eliyahu's job? V'heshiv lev avod al banim. Eliyahu is supposed to sort out the hearts of fathers and sons, and there was a tradition that thought this job was to find the problematic people and pull them out. Rabbi Yehoshua comes along and says, no, that is not his job. His job is not to purify or impurify families. His job is not to push away or bring near. He has a much smaller job, to push away those who were brought close by force and bring close those who were pushed away by force. There were families. We're going to see some names. There will be names in just a minute. There were families that were considered to have been brought into the fold by force. There was a mafia. There was a strong man. There were government officials who made things happen. You're going to make him a high priest. No, but listen, but his mother was a divorcee, and his father was a Cohen, and he is going to be the high priest, and you are going to smile and wave. Yes? Sometimes things like that happen. Eliyahu's job, according to Rabbi Yehoshua, is to fix that. So there is one, already we see one tradition that says Eliyahu's job is to fix things on a great scale, to make sure everyone's yichus is known, and we can solve all the yichus problems in the world. And another that says the yichus problems of the world are not really a problem. There are small problems of force, of some kind of strongman meddling in the ways the Jewish community is running itself. Eliyahu is going to fix that. What that means is a good question, meaning why do we need Eliyahu to fix that? Why can't we just say, in the future, the Kadosh Baruch Hu will come and give us all a big hug, and everyone will be taho, right? That's another perfectly plausible solution. But no, some people are taho, some people are not taho, and in the end of days we will find out about some of them. Everyone follow? So who are these people? So the Mishnah says, this is in the Mishnah, right? This is the foundational text of Rabbinic Judaism. Among the many important things they decided to put in there, this is what we get. The family of Beit Tzrifa was in the Transjordan, and Ben Zion pushed it away by force. We don't like Ben Zion. And another one was there. We don't say their name, because Ben Zion brought them near by force. Right? So there's a family in, Amman, or in Petra, that no one marries. And the rabbis are saying, actually, they're perfectly fine Jews, but at some point in their history, they were pushed away by this Ben Zion character. So you should know this. We want to tell you, all of you, in 2,000 years in the future, you should know that the family of Beit Tzrifa is perfectly fine to marry. And then they say there's another family. They don't say the name because they were brought near by force. Right? So now they're intermingled with all the other perfectly legitimate Jews. They're part of our families. They might be going to school with our kids. They might be our sons and daughters-in-law. We don't know. Ben Zion brought them near by force, and Eliyahu, when Eliyahu comes, will sort them all out.
What does it mean, brought in? Converted or?
No, it's not converted, because these problems are problems with Jews, within the Jewish community.
Like mamzerim or?
Like mamzerim, like slaves, like all the kehuna problems. Say you have someone, this happens all the time in the community, in very small communities. Say you have a Kohen, and the Kohen falls in love, la aleinu, with a divorcee. And they get married, and they have kids, and the kid wants to have a bar mitzvah. All fine, things like this happen all the time. And then the kid wants to have the first aliyah, Kohen. Now if the kid has a first aliyah, and he does duchening with his father, right, no one will know 50 years down the line that there was a problem. And then the question is, there are two questions. If the rabbi of the shul is very strong, and exactly how much money does this person have, and how important is he in the community? Right? This is not halakha, this is community politics. Right? On the level of community politics, things like this happen. And in the ancient world, things like this happened more. Shuls were more dependent on local funding. There was a looser network of rabbis talking to each other. People could go and start their own shul more easily. Things like this happened. There was force. It doesn't have to be actual force, but there were mechanisms of making things happen. Things like that. This is just an educated guess, not much more. I'm skipping a little, and the rabbis say, the sages say, Chachamim, Eliyahu does not come to push away, he does not come to draw near, he comes to bring peace to the world. As it says, I will send to you the prophet Eliyahu, he will turn the hearts of parents to their children, and the hearts of children to their parents. Yes? At the end of source bet. Really, this is the only people who quote the pasuk are the Chachamim, who say Eliyahu's job is to bring peace in the world. But everyone else in this machloket, including Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, who we didn't read, and Rabbi Yoshua, who we did read, all agree Eliyahu has an important role in determining connections between sons and fathers, and resetting the relationships between sons and fathers. And the job of Eliyahu, one of his jobs, apparently, is to do that before redemption. Redemption can only happen, apparently, when all the family relationships are in order, when everybody knows who their parents are and what their status is. And the position of Chachamim, who say Eliyahu's job is to bring peace to the world, sort of dampen that idea. And they say, no, that's actually not his job. We read the pasuk differently. The avot and banim are supposed to be friends, right? Have peaceful relationships, not that they will know who the father is and who the son is. So the same verse, the same late tradition about Eliyahu Hanavi is used to justify two very opposed positions about what exactly he is supposed to do. Now this is important not only because of what will happen. Eliyahu comes right Motzei Pesach. He's supposed to come Motzei Pesach. So this year, Be'ezrat Hashem, Motzei Pesach, Eliyahu Hanavi will come, and we'll see all this in action. But this is important also for thinking about issues of yichus in the present. Right? This is the way using Eliyahu as a fix-it person for this issue or that issue marks for the people in the machloket and for us, the audience, the different ways we can think about the importance of yichus. Eliyahu's relationship to lineage and legitimacy and who exactly is Jewish and whose mother married whom and whose cousin had an affair with someone in the next village and we don't want to know about. All of these things can be very, very important, and they can be not very important. And Eliyahu is the tool we use to talk about those things. That's how we should be thinking about what Eliyahu is good for. Eliyahu is good as a character in rabbinic literature. He's good for marking areas where we don't know, where we have doubts. And Eliyahu is meant to resolve certain doubts and not resolve other doubts. And the doubts that Eliyahu chooses or doesn't choose to resolve help us think about how to navigate those same doubts in our life or their life. Let's skip to source Dalet. This is halakha. This is straight up halakha, also in the Mishnah. A legal case. Who would like? Can anyone read? Anyone want to read? English or Hebrew?
Hebrew?
Masha Baracha. Follow along in the other language.
שניים שהקפידו אצל אחד.
Yifkidu. Deposited money. So two people came to one person and deposited money.
זה מנה וזה 200.
So one deposited 100 zuz and one deposited 200 zuz.
זה אומר 200 שלי וזה אומר 200 שלי.
So both come and each says, I deposited 200, the other guy deposited 100. So one of them is lying. Yes? One of them is obviously lying. They can't both be right. Okay?
נותן לזה מנה ולזה מנה, והשאר יהיה מונח עד שיבוא אליהו.
So each one clearly deposited at least 100. Yes? Each one deposited at least 100, so they get their 100 back. Now there are 100 zuz left, and it stays. How long does it stay? Until Eliyahu comes. Because Eliyahu...
Swiss franc, you come?
With the depositing. Right? Apparently a Swiss bank.
אמר רבי יוסי, אם כן, מה יצמיד הרמאי? אלא הכל יהיה מונח עד שיבוא אליהו.
Now that's for the Swiss banks.
That's what I'm
Rabbi Yossi is for the Swiss banks. Yes, Rabbi Yossi says if you give each one 100, then the liar got everything he deposited. Right? Because the liar gave 100 and got 100, and the liar's happy. He got what he gave. He didn't manage to get more, but he got what he gave. So we have now not penalized the liar. So the punishment is all 300 dinar stay with the bailiff, that's the fancy English word, stay with the shomer until Eliyahu comes. What happens when Eliyahu comes?
He will know.
Eliyahu will know, Eliyahu will be able to resolve the contradiction. That is one explanation of Ad She'yavo Eliyahu. What is the other explanation for Ad She'yavo Eliyahu? It'll never happen. The rabbis, we will probably see, here we'll see this in the next source. When the Tosefta in Masechet Sotah says, when the first temple was destroyed, this is a long list in Tosefta Sotah chapter 13 of sort of the gradual demise of divine presence in the world, right? Because we know, once upon a time, Adam and Chava lived in Gan Eden, walked around naked, and talked to God. Yes? Mm-hmm. And now we wear a lot of clothes and don't live in, well, you live in Gan Eden. But we wear a lot of clothes and we don't talk to God, right? There is we don't have ways of figuring out what God wants exactly. We sort of feel around for it. And the Tosefta in Masechet Sotah, chapter 13, sort of chronicles the gradual loss of these signs. When exactly each element of divine presence left our lives. So, the Tosefta says, when the first temple was destroyed, kingdom ceased from the house of David. And the Urim and Tumim ceased. Right? So the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, you could ask it questions and letters would light up. And then one day, after the destruction of the first temple, someone came to ask a question and nothing happened. Must have been, it's hard, right? It's a very disconcerting. Think of what happens when our iPhones don't work. And the Levitical cities ceased, Arei Midrash, as it says in the book of Ezra. The governor told them that they were not to partake of the most holy food. These are priests with doubtful status, until there should be a priest to consult Urim and Tumim. So there's a list of priests in Ezra chapter 2, and there's a whole bunch of families of priests who don't have papers. They don't have documentation that they're priests. And the Nehemiah tells them, guys, you can eat truma, you can eat the gifts that are given to priests in the cities, but you can't come to the temple and have priestly food in the temple. You can't have korbanot in the temple because, Epis, we're not so sure about you. How long will this be? Until there should be a priest to consult Urim and Tumim. Now, in the Pshat, in the simple meaning of Ezra, what that probably means is, guys, wait a few months, we have a program in place. When we get the funding for these expensive gemstones, we'll put it together, and we'll have a priest, and you can ask him. When the rabbis read this in the 3rd century in the Tosefta, they say that that's not the meaning of until there should be a priest. They say it's an expression. Like a man who says to his fellow, until the dead lives, or until Eliyahu comes. Until the dead live, or until Eliyahu comes, in everyday speech. That's never. In a million years. And so we see that in the Tosefta and Sotah, we see the use of Eliyahu's coming as something that will never happen. Or it'll happen in a very, very distant future. Right? So have you ever been invited to a Chabad wedding? When Chabad invite to weddings, the wedding is supposed to be in Yerushalayim and Beit HaMikdash, at this and that time. In Yerushalayim, not in Beit HaMikdash, in Yerushalayim. If Mashiach, and then they write in small letters at the bottom, if Mashiach does not come, it'll happen in this and that hall in Brooklyn or in Muncie or wherever they actually gave a deposit.
They have to book twice.
I take all the deposit checks. But until Eliyahu comes in the world of Chazal means never. So he's not coming. So where is he? What does he do all day? Apparently he still walks around in the world. And in the world of the rabbis, he's a very present figure. For instance, this is a very sad sort of use of Eliyahu. The Sifra, the Tanaitic Midrash, the 3rd century Midrash, the book of Leviticus, Vayikra. It's a detailed Midrash on every verse in Vayikra, and it includes the Tochecha, right, the curse at the end of Sefer Vayikra. And it's a very colorful curse. And one of the curses is, I will put your carcasses on the carcasses of your idols. Source Vav. Natati et pigrechem al pigrei ilulechem. Source Vav.
We don't know the word carcass. Anybody?
Carcass, dead body. Dead body. What's the German word?
Leiche.
Yeah.
Yes. You can blame the nice people who did the New Revised Standard Version of the English Bible. So what do dead bodies have to do with idols? Says the Midrash. Rather, Eliyahu Zachul Latov, and they always call him this. They call him Eliyahu Zachul Latov. This I haven't figured out why they call him Zachul Latov, but he's Zachul Latov. Zachul Latov, and maybe this is the key. Zachul Latov is what is used for people who donate things to shuls in antiquity. We know this because, unlike today, people would write their names in the floors of synagogues and put them on the posts like this. And so you see inscriptions like Dechir Letav, remembered for good, Justice, son of Alexander, paid for the floor. We have all sorts of examples here. The Parofim Ben Yitzchak Guggenheim, Zichron Livracha, who most of you probably knew. And all the other donations in shul, they're all almost always dechir letav. So maybe that's a key somehow, that Eliyahu is also dechir letav, that he does charity, he does good works. Unclear why Eliyahu is zechur latov, but he's always zechur latov. Eliyahu is zechur latov when we walk around the starving people after the destruction of the, which temple, first or second? So in the biblical narrative, it's about the first temple. When Chazal look at the biblical narrative, they always tell stories about the second temple. That's the way they work. The Torah they know that clearly the Torah is speaking about the first destruction, but apparently it also has enough weight to speak about the next destruction. Eliyahu would walk among the starving. He found one of them bloated and faint with hunger. He said, "My son, from which family are you?" Again, the families. He said, "From this and that family." "How many were with you?" 3,000. "How many are left?" He said, "Me." He said, "Would you like to say one thing and live?" He said, "Sure." He said, "Amal lo aval." It's a funny use of the word aval. Usually aval means but. But in this case, aval means truly or very much. There is that, Rashi says that aval can sometimes mean true, kushla, and that's this use of aval. Yes, indeed, sure, aval. He said, "Say Shema Yisrael." Immediately, this man, this starving man, who was given the one chance to live, he yelled out, "Hush! We must not mention the name of the Lord. Has ki lo le'azkir b'shem Adonai." This is not what Father taught us. I have a tradition from my house. We don't talk about that God. We have our gods. We have our Baal. We have our Asherah. We have our Zeuses and whatevers. This is not what Father taught us. What did he do? He took his idol and put it on his heart and hugged it and kissed it until his stomach burst. And he would fall with his idol on the ground. Thus it is said, "I will put your carcasses, your dead bodies, on the dead bodies of your idol." So this is a little vivid. But I brought it to show what Eliyahu is able to do in this world. Right? Eliyahu is able to walk around these dead people. He is not a person, but he is of this world. He's a human who can sort of enter into a scene and try to fix it. Right? He finds out the family. He says, "I'm going to help you. I'm going to change your heart." Heshiv lev avot al banim. Right? The next verse after Shema Yisrael, "V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha." I'm going to change your heart just a little bit, and I will save you. And the guy is like, no. We have traditions here in our village. We don't deal with that God. We are proud Jewish idolaters. Yes, I'm going to die with it. And that's, Eliyahu is able to do that, what nobody else is able to do. Another story. Eliyahu apparently has relationships with individual rabbis. He has the habit of appearing and speaking to individual rabbis. This shows up mostly not in Tannaitic sources, not in sources from the 3rd century, but in Amoraic sources from the 5th century or 4th century. And it's a different kind of engagement this time. It's not sort of entering into a scene and trying to fix it, but rather an ongoing relationship between Eliyahu and a rabbi. Eliyahu does all sorts of crazy things for these rabbis, sometimes. We'll see some of them. But most often, what he does in order to signal disapproval is to stop coming. The first sign that Eliyahu is angry with you is he stops coming. And Eliyahu not coming is used as a literary device in a whole lot of rabbinic stories to talk about behavior that is not desirable, but is not forbidden. Right? It's not asul, it's not eating pork, it's not driving on Shabbat, it's not eating on Yom Kippur, or, I don't know, killing people. But it's displeasing. And the way God's displeasure is known is that Eliyahu stops coming. Right? So Eliyahu, in this case, works as a kind of emissary, a shaliach, from sort of the people up there to let you know that they're not happy. And that way, this is a nice way of Eliyahu resolves doubtful cases. When Eliyahu shows displeasure, or I think that's what we'll see, when Eliyahu shows that he's not happy, that's a resolution of a doubtful case. I don't know, the halakha is like this, it's also like that, there's a machloket, some rabbis say this, some rabbis say that. Unclear, I can't figure it out, I'll do what's better for me. Eliyahu comes, or doesn't come, Eliyahu stops coming, and you're like, oh, wait, I resolved that doubtful case wrongly. I made a bad choice, I need to shift. And just to make this, let's see it inside and see how this works. So source Zayin, it's in Palestinian Aramaic, which is close to Chinese. Ula Bal Kashav, or Kushav, was wanted by the kingdom. And he ran away to Lud. Who lived in Lud? Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. We're going to meet him a lot. He's a good friend of Eliyahu. They came and besieged the city. Who besieged the city? The Romans. Right? So Ula Bar Kushav runs away, hangs out with Yoshua ben Levi. The Romans come around the city and lay siege, and they're the police. They want him. They want to take this guy. They said to them, to the city, if you do not give him to us, we will destroy the city. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi went to them and appeased them and gave him to them. Okay, so Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi took this Jewish man, Ula Bar Kushav, picked him up and gave him, he Moser resigned him to the Romans. This is not a good thing to do in the world of the rabbis. Yes, you do not give people in to the authorities. Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't do this. This is not the way Jews treat each other. We solve our differences inside. We do not give up people to the government. Right? This is a very sort of big no-no in the world of the rabbis. In our world, I have nothing to say about that. Eliyahu Zachulatov was accustomed to revealing himself to him. Eliyahu would come to Yoshua ben Levi at regular intervals, and they would hang out and talk and learn Torah. And then he stopped revealing himself. And Yoshua ben Levi fasted several fasts. And Eliyahu revealed himself. Now, why is this cool? Because Eliyahu fasts. Yes, Eliyahu fasts for 40 days and 40 nights in the desert before God reveals himself to him. And Eliyahu is angry, and he says, do I reveal myself to collaborators? La masorot ani nigla? Do I reveal myself to Muslim? I don't consort with people like you. I don't like you anymore. And Yoshua ben Levi said, wait, did I not do what the Mishnah said? Mishnah says, if the Romans come and besiege a city and say, we want that guy, you give him that guy, because that guy is now dangerous for the whole city. He's a rodef. So Yoshua ben Levi was doing what the halakha told him to do. Eliyahu said, is that the Mishnah of the pious? Zo Mishnah the Hasidim? Right? So here we see Yoshua ben Levi is a rabbi. He knows his Mishnah well. The Mishnah says, if there's a siege around a city, and they want someone from inside the city, they name him by name, that person is now a danger to everyone. You pick him up and chuck him out. He's a rodef. He's endangering everyone's life. You give him up to the police, or else, who knows what could happen. They'll destroy the whole city, they said. Eliyahu does not approve. Eliyahu says that is not the Mishnah of the pious ones. And I, Eliyahu, I hang out with pious people. I don't hang out with people like you. Mosrim. Right? He uses it's a very, very strong word. Yeah.
Just for clarification, you're talking about the person being extradited who was guilty for something or nothing?
So in the world of the Mishnah, it doesn't matter. In our world, it matters very much. But in our world, it's important to remember that we are citizens of democratic countries, and we have the police work for us. Right?
My question is going into the ancient.
Oh, so in their head, it doesn't matter if they're guilty or not guilty. No.
That's just a question.
We solve our problems inside. If he's guilty of something, we can take care of it. And we know we have our ways, even after the established ways, the mitot beit din are gone, we have our ways. We know how to take care of our own. And then the only question is we treat the police and the Roman army are treated sort of like forces of nature. Right? Usually forces of nature do not say, we want that guy, right? When a river comes rushing through a town or there's a mudslide, they don't say we want that person. But sometimes, think of Yonah, right? Sometimes, again, in the ancient world, forces of nature also know how to say, we want that guy. And then it's perfectly legitimate, says the Mishnah, to take the guy, throw him out, throw him into the sea, hand him over to the Romans. But Eliyahu is not happy. He says that is not the Mishnah of the pious ones. Now, what would Eliyahu want to happen? What would he want? What would make Eliyahu happy?
To resist the siege of Rome.
Either to resist the siege on Rome, or to let the Romans kill you. Right? There's no way for a positive outcome here. But it does fit with Eliyahu's character. He's an extremist. He has very strong views about things. He's zealous. He says to God, I was jealous for you, Kanoki neti, Ladonai Elohei tzvaot, and that is the reason God took him away and put him in the sky, because he was not capable of maintaining proper human relationships in the world, so God whisked him away and put him in the sky. So when Eliyahu comes to Yoshua ben Levi and says, your decision was wrong, this is a very cool play by the rabbis who wrote the story. Because on the one hand, they're saying, we feel very uncomfortable giving up our own people to the authorities. And we feel uncomfortable with the Mishnah that says you should give up your people to the authorities, right? The Mishnah says that's what you do. And Yoshua ben Levi was just following the Mishnah. And by saying Eliyahu does not approve, the rabbis are saying, really, we don't approve. This seems wrong. On the other hand, when you mark something as something Eliyahu does not approve of, yes, what Eliyahu would approve of is not a viable option because he's a little extreme. Eliyahu's an extremist. So what Eliyahu thinks is good is probably not good. Right? So that way you get both the moral critique and also the pragmatic answer. It is not good to extradite other Jews. It is also not good and not smart to have your whole city destroyed because of one guy whose name we don't even know. Yes?
רבי יהושע בן לוי
Yes.
עשה את מה שהוא עשה, הוא מסר אותו. ואחר כך הוא חיפש תמיכה, ולכן הוא צם. למה הוא קורא לאליהו? הוא יודע מי אליהו. למה יש צורך לקרוא דווקא לאליהו הקנאי, שהוא יכול להניח שהוא לא יתמוך במעשה שלו?
So I think that אפשר לענות באנגלית?
כן, כן.
So I think Yoshua ben Levi has an ongoing relationship with Eliyahu. And then Eliyahu stops coming. So that's a sign for Yoshua ben Levi that something is wrong in his relationship with Eliyahu. He's not searching for support from Eliyahu. He got a slap on the wrist from Eliyahu. And now he's sad and he's troubled. He has this friend who would come, and now the friend is not he's angry. And when Eliyahu was angry, he has strong friends in high places who are also angry. So maybe he did something very wrong. That's what's going on, I think. Not that he's looking for Eliyahu, not that he's seeking him out. Maybe he's also seeking him out. If you want to read it that way.
He's expressing remorse.
Yes, so I think, your name please?
Racheli.
So what Racheli is saying is also, I think he's having doubts, he's having self-doubts. And calling on Eliyahu, or sort of being troubled.
זה נשמע כמו קונפליקט בין לעשות את מה שבמשנה לבין הגישה של אליהו.
Yes, but he wouldn't know that that was Eliyahu's approach unless Eliyahu came and told him. Yes, that's true, knowing Eliyahu. And Eliyahu is also able to answer halakhic questions, even though for this question we don't have an answer. This is just one sentence in the Talmud Yerushalmi, which is typical of the Talmud Yerushalmi. Sometimes that's all you get is one sentence. Rabbi Abba bar Avin said, a certain pious man asked Eliyahu Zachur Latov, can a naked person say the Shema? He said, Eliyahu answers the question. We do have the answer. Eliyahu answers the question. V'lo yera'eh becha ervat davar. The nakedness of davar shall not be seen in you. Ervat dibur, the nakedness of speech. Okay. So, what's the first? How does it's sort of a non sequitur, right? The question and the answer. Before we get to what the question is and what the answer was, apparently, if you're a Chassid, again Chassid, right? Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi was told, your Mishnah is not the Mishnah of the Chassidim, of the pious people. And now we see that there was a Chassid who asked Eliyahu a halachic question. So Chassidim and Eliyahu go together. These may also be the Hasidim of Eastern Europe. That's why they adopted the name. But in rabbinic literature, there is a class of people who are Hasidim. They're very pious. And one of these persons asked Eliyahu, Ahum, can an Ahum person say the Shema? Now, Ahum has two meanings. Yes, as we all know, Ahum, or as speakers of modern Hebrew know, Ahum means I'm not wearing any clothes. Vayu ha'adam v'ishto ahumim, right? Adam and his wife were naked and weren't wearing any clothes. And Ahum also means canny. V'anachash haya ahum mikol chayat hasadeh, right? The snake was the most canny. There's a better word for this. Sly. Scheming. Someone say the word in German for me.
Hinterlistig.
In German.
So this ahum, right, is a double entendre. The Chassid asks, ahum ma'oshi krashma. Now the answer to the question, can I say Shema with no clothes? For that, you don't need Eliyahu Hanavi. For that, you need, I don't know, Yeshiva Bocher, who happens to come back from his year in Israel. Right? You say, Ahu Maushi Krashma. He says, what are you, nuts? You don't say Shema when you're not wearing any clothes. But from Eliyahu's answer, you get the different meaning of Ahu.
I assume the question is not just easy. I mean, normally he would wear, but now he can't. He's, I don't know, taking sauna, and in the minute the smell of Shema.
You don't say it. You're patul. You're not wearing any clothes. Here, free halachic advice. I am not a lawyer, but if you are not wearing any clothes, and you happen to be in your bed, and the time for Shema is passing, do not read the Shema. Put something around yourself first, then read the Shema. Okay, that's Ahu Maushi Kashma. But from the answer, we learn something else. From the answer, we learn something else. Eliyahu says, "Lo yera'eh becha ervat davar, ervat dibur." So there's a law in Sefer Tfarim that says when you go to the bathroom in the camp, don't go in the camp. Go outside and dig a hole do it in the hole covered up. And lo yira'eh b'cha ervat davar. Right? An unclean thing or a thing of nakedness should not be seen in the camp. Now, the word davar in biblical Hebrew means thing. In rabbinic Hebrew, sometimes means thing, but most often means speech. And in a lot of places in Tanakh, whenever there's the word davar, the rabbis, and possibly even those who came before the rabbis, say, oh, this means speech. For instance, there's a mitzvah, dvar Torah, yes, but I'm trying to think of the word davar when it's turned from thing into dibur. There's a mitzvah to forgive all your debts once every 7 years. The mitzvah begins in Sefer Dvarim, v'zeh dvar hashmita. Right? And so from this, the Mishnah says, you have to say, I forgive the debt. And then if the person says, no, but I want to pay, that's okay. Because zeh dvar hashmita, the dibur, the speech, I forgive the debt. That's enough. That's the word of Shemitah. You're all good. Or, for instance, the Torah says you can't give interest. You can't give interest in food. You can't give interest in money. You can't give interest. Kol davar asher yishach. And from this, the Tosefta learns you can't give interest in words. If you took a loan from someone and you weren't friends before, don't go being his friend now. Don't bring him baskets of muffins. Don't even say hello to him in the street if you were not accustomed to saying hello to him in the street first. Because that is interest in words, dibur. So here Eliyahu uses the same trick. He says, Lo yira'eh b'cha ervat davar, not ervat davar, a thing of nakedness, but ervat dibur, a speech of nakedness. Or sort of impure speech, unclean speech, the German word again, sly speech. So Eliyahu here says, and it's not a halakhic question anymore. Or maybe this is sort of a whole other level that's unlocked when you get to talk to Eliyahu. This is a different kind of halakha. It's not what your body is and how you look and what you do. It's Eliyahu is able to regulate your thoughts and your mind and say, if you are a person with crooked thoughts, you really should not be saying Shema. Right? So that's a whole different approach. And the rabbis, when they use Eliyahu this way, again, right, what they're saying is, we understand this as a religious path that we admire and that we put on a pedestal, but really this is also a religious path that we think should be for a very small number of people, preferably those who live in the sky. Right? And so at the same time, they can both embrace this religious path and push it away. Another story. I'm skipping to source Yud. This is a beautiful story. I love this story. Yud, on page 4. Would anyone like to read? It's all in Hebrew, so it's even half understandable.
פעם אחת הייתי מהלך בדרך ונכנסתי לחורבה אחת מחורבות ירושלים להתפלל. ובא אליהו זכור לטוב ושימר לי על הפתח עד שסיימתי את תפילתי. ולאחר שסיימתי את תפילתי אמר לי, שלום עליך רב. אמרתי לו, שלום עליך רבי ומורי. אמר לי, בני, מפני מה נכנסת לחורבה זאת? אמרתי לו, להתפלל. אמר לי, מפני מה לא התפללת בדרך? אמרתי לו, מתיירא הייתי שמא יפסיקוני עופרי דרכים. אמר לי, היה לך להתפלל תפילה קצרה. ובאותה שעה למדתי ממנו 3 דברים. למדתי שאין נכנסים לחורבה, ולמדתי שמתפללים בדרך, והמתפלל בדרך שיתפלל תפילה קצרה.
So let's stop here for a second. Here we have Eliyahu, right? This is not the Eliyahu we've come to know and love. Eliyahu is acting like a regular rabbi. You have this Rabbi Yossi, goes on the way, he needs to daven, and so he walks into a ruin of the ruins of Jerusalem. That's already weird, because if he's on the way, why are there ruins of the ruins of Jerusalem? Like, how is this happening, that he's on a road, and there are pieces of a city on the side of the road? Right? This is not, there are no bypass roads in the ancient world. The roads go through the cities. If you're in a city, you're not on the road, and vice versa. And so this is already a non-place. Right? This is sort of an imaginary place that he's imagining. Here he's a chuva. It's I would even say romantic. Right? Chuva mi chuvot Yerushalayim. And Eliyahu is helping, right? He's aiding and abetting Rabbi Yossi in his prayer inside this chuva. Right? He's standing there and guarding him until he finishes davening. From other stories about rabbis davening, we know this could be half an hour, this could be 45 minutes, this could be 2 hours, who knows? Rabbi Akiva, you would leave him in one corner, and when you came back and you finished davening, he was in another corner, and you wouldn't even notice he moved halfway across the room. Rabbis famously davened for a very, very, very long time. So Eliyahu stands there helping this project happen, but then he says, really, you shouldn't have done this. Right? You shouldn't have done this. You should have davened on the road. You should not have walked into a dangerous building. Chuva, right? A building that is falling apart. Do not walk into a chuva and do pray on the road. Perfectly fine to pray on the road. And if you pray on the road, pray a short prayer. It's printed in the Sidurim. You can see it. It's very useful. If you're stuck, if you have 2 seconds left. But then, Eliyahu shows his hand. And he says something else. Keep reading.
אמר לי, בני, מה קול שמעת בחוקבה זו? אמרתי לו, שמעתי בת קול שמנהמת כיונה ואומרת, אוי שחירבתי את ביתי ושרפתי את היכלי, והגליתי את בניי לבין אומות העולם. אמר לי, בני, חייך וחיי ראשך. לא שעה זו בלבד, אלא בכל יום ויום, 3 פעמים אומרת כך. ולא עוד, אלא בכל זמן שישראל נכנסים לבתי כנסיות ולבתי מדרשות, ועונין אמן, יהיה שמי רבה מבורך. הקדוש ברוך הוא מנענע ראשו ואומר, אשרי המלך שמקלסים אותו בביתו כך. ואוי לו לאב שיגלה את בניו, ואוי להם לבנים שגלו מעל שולחן אביהם.
Yeah, that's a skip in the manuscript, but yes, it's there. Those are real words. So what happens when Rabbi Yossi is spending his time in this unsafe building, being guarded by Eliyahu, who is later going to tell him, you shouldn't have done that, no, no, no. What does he get? He gets a message. So should he have gone into the building to daven, or should he not have gone into the building to daven? If Rabbi Yossi had done what the halacha is, what Eliyahu is telling him he should have done, right, what would have happened? Pardon me?
He had not heard it.
He would not have heard the thing, right? He would not have gotten the message from the divine, right? He would not have heard bat kol. Bat kol is not a daughter of speech. Bat kol is just it's the object of speech, like bat ayin. It's a disembodied speech, I think, is the best translation. Speech with no body. I heard talking. We have movies with voiceovers, so we think that's perfectly normal. But in their world, a voice with no body, that's weird. So he gets this message. Someone is communicating with him. And then, not only is someone communicating with Rabbi Yossi directly with this voice, Eliyahu adds more information. He says, I am telling you, this happens, right? This bat kol happens not just when you're davening, but it happens every time Jews come together to daven. They can't hear it. They're a little thick. They make too much noise, but really, that's what happens. And we wouldn't know that if Rabbi Yossi had not stopped on the right, if Rabbi Yossi had done what Eliyahu told him he should have done. We wouldn't have heard that either. Right? So again, you see this ambivalence. They use Eliyahu to give halachic instructions that this time are sort of very straight and narrow. Don't be too frum, don't daven too long, don't go into anywhere dangerous just so you won't be on the road. You're on the road, daven short, take 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes, mumble your words and keep going. Eliyahu says that, but he doesn't mean that. Right? He doesn't mean that because someone sent him to take care of Rabbi Yossi in the Chuvah. Someone sent a bat kol that Rabbi Yossi should hear, and then Eliyahu is so excited, he adds more information. Right? More information from the beyond. So again, we see Eliyahu, on the one hand, is trying, he's really trying, I think, in this story, to be on the straight and narrow. He's trying to be a good Talmid Chacham and to give the right halachic advice, but it's hard for him. He's struggling with it. Because what he's really trying to do is to say, Rabbi Yossi, I love you so much. You love God. You do crazy things for God. I do crazy things for God. We can be friends. This is amazing. God is sad about this. I'm sad about this. You're apparently sad about this. We can bond over this. If you wanted to read it this way, you can see really Eliyahu being lonely. All the way there up in the sky. And that's maybe, I'm letting my imagination run away with me here, that might be why he looks for rabbis to hang out with. Right? Why he tries to consort to make friendships, long-term friendships with rabbis. Because these are the people who understand him. These are the people who can sort of speak his language now in this world. This is a nice story. The next story is a less nice story. This story has had a lot of mileage in the history of halakha. You can read it in popular guidebooks on the matter which it discusses to this day. Who would like to read? You don't have to read in Hebrew, you can read in English. I know it's not much better. The story of a man, Maaseh, who would read much and repeat much, and he served the sages much. Repeat Mishnah. Yes, he knew Tanakh, he knew Mishnah, he went to the yeshiva all the time, and he died after half his days. He died young, he died at 35. And his wife would cry and yell and place her hands on her head, holding his tefillin. Right. Now this man was, the fact that he wore tefillin at all, this is important to remember. The fact that this man wore tefillin and had a pair of tefillin that he owned did not mean that he was a boy who had a bar mitzvah, or a girl who had a bat mitzvah, but that he was very, very, very frum, very pious. Men in antiquity did not wear tefillin in general. Only very pious people wore tefillin. And in fact, that was the case all the way into the Middle Ages until the 13th century, when a man named Rabbi Moses of Kusi, who wrote a book called Sefer Mitzvot Gadol, he writes about this. He went on a tour of Europe, convincing people to wear tefillin. And people all over told him, look, we're not frum enough, we think impure thoughts, we're not sure, you know, the body, it decays, it has functions and things. Our rabbi wears tefillin, holy people wear tefillin, we don't wear tefillin. And he sort of instigated or sparked a revolution, and that sort of turned into buying tefillin for 13-year-olds. Which was unheard of until his time. Actually, also in his time, the 13-year-old thing happened a bit later. But tefillin were worn, which is, the remains of that are that we don't give little children tefillin. Yes, we give little children tzitzit, we give them lulav and etrog, we teach them to kiss the mezuzah. On Simchat Torah, we let them come and have an aliyah. Little children are part of our religious culture, right? But tefillin, no tefillin for you. Tefillin only, right? The week, the month before, right? 7 minutes before you turn 13, you really have to. So that just sort of extended into adulthood. People were like, I'm not frum enough. He's frum enough. That guy frum enough. But I'm not tzaddik enough to wear tefillin. So the fact that this man has tefillin and his wife is sort of running around with his tefillin, that's the proof that he was uber frum. Yes, very, very frum. His wife would cry and yell, and she said she would go around the houses of study and tell them, my masters, Rabbi said, does your Torah not say, for it is your life and the length of your days? My husband read much Torah and repeated much Mishnah, and he served the sages much. And where are his lengthy days? Why is he dead? He died after half his days, and nobody said anything to her. Right? So the challenge she gave to the rabbis was a real challenge. And remember, the people writing the story or telling the story are also rabbis. And most likely, what we know about mortality, there were a lot of people around them who died at 35 for all sorts of reasons. Right? It wasn't such an uncommon occurrence. Even today, people die when they're 35. Though. So here we have, and the rabbis, when they say none of the rabbis knew what to tell her, they're saying, we don't know. We have limited knowledge about what happens in the beyond. One time, and this is a very, very disturbing story. I don't know what to do with this story other than say, this is a very disturbing story. One time, Eliyahu Zachur Latov came to her. By now we know a bunch of things about people Eliyahu Zachur Latov chooses to come to. Right? So Eliyahu Zachur Latov believed in her and thought she was a pious person. She was a tzaddiket, she was a chassidah, she deserved to speak to him. And he says, my daughter, why do you cry with your hands on your head? And she said to him, my master, my husband, or Mr. even, Rabbi, my husband read much and repeated much. Why did he die after half his days? He said to her, my daughter, when you are in the blood of menstruation, all those first days, how is he with you? Eliyahu wants to know about these things. Yes, Eliyahu wants to know. She said, Master, he does not touch me even with his little finger. He said, he would say, yes, do not touch me, not even through my clothing, lest a doubt arise. Shema avoli de safek. Right? Eliyahu is the person who resolves doubts. And here he found his counterpart, this man who did not want any doubts. By the way, what's the safek? What's the touching through the clothing? What kind of safek are we talking about?
Tumah, Tara.
Tumah Tara. This is a person who eats all of his food in a state of tahara. If his wife is menstruating and she touches him, it's not sexual necessarily, but now he has to go to the mikveh and immerse and wait a whole day before he can eat a sandwich, or his sandwich, of pure food. Think about what this kind of regimen meant for Jews in antiquity, right? What this meant for relationships between men and women in antiquity, because really you had to have not just two kitchens for milchik and fleishik, but you had to have taho and tameh kitchens. And you needed to have separate sets of utensils. You needed to have different people making food. You have a lot more men making food for themselves and fewer women cooking for men, because women often cannot cook for the men who are trying to be pure. All of this leads to a lot of money spent on stoneware, stone vessels. That's how they find Jewish settlements in archaeological digs. Stoneware is expensive. It's not worth paying for unless you know that stoneware is the only substance that's not mekabel tumah, that can't become impure, and then everyone wants stoneware.
But there were very few people that were keeping really that kind of thing.
Fewer and fewer. But again, we're talking about this crazy tzaddik character, right? He puts on tefillin and everything. So yes, so he also, so he said, just don't touch me, don't touch me. And then he said, wait, all those last days, how was he with you? She said to him, Master, on the last days, I ate with him and I drank with him and I slept with him in a bed, and his flesh touched mine, but he did not think of any funny business. Davar acher. He said, and this is bananas, Baruch hamakom shenigafo. Blessed is the omnipresent, the makom who killed him. He was right. Your husband should have died. So Eliyahu, right, well, let me just finish. For this is what the Torah says, do not come near to a woman in her sexual impurity. I don't know if the last sentence is connected to the original story or not. But what we see here we see the other side of Eliyahu, the less sympathetic side of Eliyahu. Right? You see a human tragedy. You see a terrible story. All the rabbis knew when to keep their mouths shut. They may have had ideas, they may have wanted to say this, but they knew when to not say it. Then Eliyahu comes. Eliyahu has no two ways about it, right? No elvat davar. He's not arum at all. He has no tact. And he's like, so tell me, how did you do this? And how did you do that? Now I know. Good thing he's dead. It's terrible. It's terrible. Right? And this is why Eliyahu is really not supposed to be in the company of humans. Right? Because he is not capable of having this kind of empathy. Right? He's not capable. Did I say something, a word that I wasn't understanding?
I don't think the mistake should have been
Pardon?
It seems that as if they did make a mistake.
So it seems, why does it seem as if they
I
did
don't
make
see
it?
the mistake they made.
So the mistake they're making, pardon my French here, the mistake they're making is that they made a distinction between, in their practices of intimacy, between the days of actual menstrual bleeding and the days after, the clean days, that she was supposed to count.
That's what you mean, the last days.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the reason this is weird is because from all the other sources from this time, she was not supposed to be counting those clean days. From all the other sources of the time, she was not supposed to be counting those clean days. And this is the source that gets codified into halacha in the Rif, and then in the Rambam, and then in Tu, and then in Shulchan. This is a central source with halachic significance that becomes part of halacha. This usually does not happen to stories. Definitely not the stories that feature Eliyahu Hanavi. But here it became part of halacha because this is a very strong judgment, right? Baruch hamakom shenigafo. So I guess Eliyahu has the last word, or the next to last word on this. But I think what the rabbis are trying to say is use this as a case for maybe sometimes there are things we should not be saying, on the one hand. On the other hand, we can't not say them at all. We can't just keep quiet about it, right? So we'll use the character of Eliyahu, the man who was not able to observe social niceties, right? The man who can't, just be nice to people, who says it in your face, to say that. To say, sometimes yes, sometimes tragedy is justified. That's a terrible, terrible thing to say. And it's not, tragedy is not justified. Tragedy is a terrible thing. That's why we call it tragedy. And that's the less sympathetic side of Eliyahu. That's the Eliyahu that God took away and put in the sky, I think for precisely that reason, because he was zealous. And the next few sources are about this, about the unfriendly Eliyahu. There was a man who prayed behind a synagogue and did not turn his face to the synagogue. And so if you're praying behind a shul, you have to turn towards the shul. And not towards Jerusalem, right? Because the shul is facing Jerusalem. Don't face Jerusalem, face the shul. because you're standing next to an Elam Kodesh, face the shul, that's where the Shekhinah is right now, face the shul. This may or may not have been a point of contention when the story was created, right? Because if you ask a person who davens regularly what they would do if they happen to be davening behind the shul, you'd probably get two answers, right? I daven towards Jerusalem, I daven towards Jerusalem. So once upon a time, there was a man who prayed behind the synagogue, did not turn his face to the synagogue. Eliyahu came, appeared to him as an Arab. Tayyah. Why is this important that he was an Arab? Arabs ride horses and they have swords. He said, did you leave your master like you were used to? Whatever that means. He pulled out his sword and killed him. Eliyahu, he can do things like that. Or in Mishnah Makot, a certain old man told them, this is nicer Eliyahu again, these are two good sources about nicer Eliyahu, and I think we'll end with this. A certain old man told them, the rabbis of the Talmud, I heard in the sermon of Rava, that they were supposed to pray for their generation and they did not. The Kohanim Gdolim, the high priests, when they die, all the people who unintentionally murdered someone and are in a city of refuge get released. Why is that? Why are the Kohanim Gdolim? Why is their life linked to the lives of these people with rubber hands? Because they were supposed to pray for their generation, they didn't pray. Like the man who was eaten by a lion 3 parsaot away from Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Parsa is, I think, about 5,000 kilometers.
No,
No, not 5,000?
5 kilometers.
5 kilometers?
Yeah.
Oh yes, 5,000 meters. So in the next town.
Yeah.
So Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi is in Lud, so this guy is in Rehovot, or in Yavne. And Eliyahu did not speak to him for 3 days. So Eliyahu inflicts responsibility. And the last source is about the connection between Eliyahu and charity, and a specific kind of charity. We talked about this. The Mishnah says that members of a community can decide and force each other to build a gatehouse. To build a building that can close at night with a key, and maybe even a room for a guard. Right? So the modern equivalent would be people who live in an apartment building can put a key and force each other to pay for the intercom system at the entrance to the building. Members of a community can set up a gate and make a gated community. Right? And they can compel each other to pay. This is the Mishnah, this is the Halacha. Again, like other halachot, perfectly fine. So this means, says the Talmud in Masechet Bava Batra, source 14, that a gatehouse is an improvement, right? Like all sorts of other things, like building walls and cutting down trees and setting up other kinds of communal property. It's an improvement on the property. But there was a certain pious man, again, whom Eliyahu would speak to. And when he made a gatehouse for his home, Eliyahu did not speak to him. We'll get to this is not difficult for a minute. But why did Eliyahu stop coming? It's closed. The gate is closed. Right? Eliyahu stopped coming because now this guy has a gate. Eliyahu can't walk through gates. He can show up, but the gate, literally, I think in the story, the gate bars Eliyahu from coming in. Now that's the plot reason why Eliyahu doesn't come. Why does Eliyahu really not come? What does the gatehouse prevent? Hachnasat orchim, tzedakah. You have poor people. They want money. They need food. They need lodging. They're coming to your house, but you set up a gate. You set up a gated community. you set up an intercom on your building, you're saying, right, it's like hanging a sign saying beggars keep out. Right? Maybe there also is a sign that says beggars keep out. Wait, so I get why Eliyahu is angry. Eliyahu is for the beggar, right? He's for the underdog. Great. What is the Mishnah thinking? The Mishnah says it's okay. The Mishnah says it's fine. So why is it fine here and not fine here? Why is Eliyahu angry at the Mishnah? What are the two sides of the dilemma? Is it important to give tzedakah? Of course it's important to give tzedakah. Right, so why the dilemma? So here, I'd just like to end with this. The Mishnah has a system. In Tractate Peah, chapter 8, for taking care of the poor people in the city. This includes people who happen to pass by in the city. This includes people who were born and raised in the city. This includes people who lived in the city for a while. And according to how long you've lived in the city, and how much you need, and what kind of poverty level you have, you get certain things from the city. You can get food, you can get clothes, you can get lodging, right, place to live, you can get money. And you're entitled, as a poor person, in the Mishnah, to take things from people in the town. For instance, you're allowed to take the corner of their field that they have to leave for you. Right? That's not a gift, that's an entitlement. The trade-off for this system is beggars have no place in the city. They don't need a place in the city. First of all, in the ideal version, right, everyone is paid for and everyone is accounted for, no one falls through the cracks and everyone is taken care of, right? That is sort of the ideal version. In the less ideal version, guys, we have a system. Sign on to the system. I already paid. I paid in the office. Right? It comes out of my paycheck. Go see Bituach Leumi. Go see the welfare office. Go see the bureaucrat in charge. And they'll take care of you. Or not, right? It's their choice. There's a system. You talk to the system. I talk to the system. We both talk to the system. We don't know each other. We don't see each other. Right? That's, in some traditions, that is the best kind of tzedakah. I don't know you, I don't see you, I have no idea who you are. Eliyahu apparently thinks differently. And this is a real dilemma in philanthropy and in charity. People talk about this all the time. I read too many blogs on this. But this is a real dilemma in how to give money. Eliyahu has a different idea, which is, I don't know about bureaucracy. I don't know about offices. But there's this guy who needs help, and he's asking for help, and because you put up a gatehouse, he can't get to you. So, you know, you're probably not as frum as you said you were, so I don't like you anymore. Right? And when you say to Eliyahu, we have bureaucrats, we have the system, we have this, we have that, Eliyahu's like, I don't know, I don't care. I don't have to care, I'm Eliyahu, I get to go crazy. Right? I get to make unreasonable demands that you then have to keep in your mind and try to live up to, knowing that you'll fail. Right? And this dilemma is a real dilemma. It's a dilemma of every time people with more money and people with less money live in a city together. Right? Do I encourage people to give money to beggars on the street, knowing or not that they will use it for heroin? Or do I say, no, there's an office, everyone go to the office, and I spend all the money, all the resources on the office? And Eliyahu represents a strand of thought that is, in this case, right up against all of the tradition in the Mishnah, all the halachic tradition on how to give charity until his time. And again, in this case, Eliyahu wins in the sense that the laws of tzedakah in the Talmud, because of this story, shift a little bit and start encouraging people to give to beggars again. And stop thinking about consequences, and stop thinking about heroin, and stop thinking about, but I saw him driving a Lamborghini yesterday. And that, of course, leads to the breakdown of the bureaucratic system, which doesn't exist the way the Mishnah. It never lived long enough to make it into the historical record of Jewish communities that we know about in closer to the time of the Talmud. We don't have it today in most Jewish communities. We have all sorts of other little things, but the hierarchical system where there are people who walk around from house to house collecting money, right, where everyone has to pay in, where they can take your car until you pay in, and then the money is spread out according to needs, that doesn't exist. It probably never existed. And personalized tzedakah, won the day. So again, we see another dilemma, sort of very central dilemma, played out using the character of Eliyahu, who gives us both sides of an issue. And so the irony is, and this is the last sentence, the irony is Eliyahu is supposed to resolve doubts, but really what he does in rabbinic literature is raise doubts. Give us both sides of the story. If Eliyahu is for it, it's got to be good. If Eliyahu is for it, it's got to be crazy. And that is Eliyahu Hanavi. May he soon come to us and show us both what is good and what is crazy.
Voilà.